But it's an ideal scenario to learn how to provide the documentation for the entities. Okay, and what are the components that are used to provide or to design the documentation? Okay, all these things we need to learn and we need to implement. Not even learn, we need to implement. Okay, let's consider like I have designed some code and that code is being reviewed by someone else. The first thing they will do is they will search for documentation. Is the documentation perfect or not? Okay, so documentation is very important as development. Please don't ignore this documentation. It's very important. So now, what the importance of documentation means? Whatever the things that we develop, whatever the components that we develop, a class, an interface, a method, why that method is used, attribute, why that attribute is used, okay, and like enum, why that enum is used, what are the different enum values, why each and every enum value is used. Okay, let's consider like I am a software engineer. I have developed as a group we have developed some application for 1 year. Okay, among 5 people, 4 people left the company, and some other guy has come, so that some X company has recruited 3 more people into the project, and they are very new to the project. They don't know what exactly is the project and what X class will do or what Y class will do or what Z class will do. How they can come to know what is the purpose of this class, or what is the purpose of the attribute, or what is the purpose of this method, or what is the purpose of this specific code? They can come to know only when it is documented. So, as a developer, we should make a practice that whenever we develop some code, that code should be documented. Okay, it's a better practice. And in some scenarios, it depends upon the client. Some clients will expect mandatory documentation. 80% of the clients will expect mandatory documentation. 70% of the clients will expect perfect documentation. Some of the clients will ignore whether the documentation is perfect or not, but 70% of the clients will expect perfect documentation. So we should learn how it works, what we need to do. Okay, and let's go with a separate class. Let me close all these things. Let me go for a separate class. Okay. Now, to write the documentation can be written at any level. Okay, the first level where we can write the documentation is at the entity level. Okay. Now, to write the documentation, we can write the documentation in any way. Okay, and we write the documentation in comments. Okay, we write the description related to something in comments. And there are 3 types of comments that we can write in a Java application. A single line comment, which is written in 2 forward slashes. A single line comment, a multi-line comment. A multi-line comment is a forward slash asterisk, asterisk, forward slash. This is a multi-line comment. Okay, we can write multiple lines like this. Okay, but the JavaDoc comment, the third type of comments is JavaDoc comments. The third type of comment is JavaDoc comments. This is a single line comment. Okay, first is single line comments. Second one is multi-line comments. The third one is JavaDoc comments. Okay, and single line comments is just by using two forward slashes. Multi-line comments means a forward slash asterisk asterisk forward slash. Within this we can write multiple lines of comments. And the Java document is forward slash asterisk asterisk and asterisk forward slash. This is a multi-line comment. Sorry, this is a JavaDoc comment. Forward slash asterisk asterisk and then asterisk forward slash. This is a JavaDoc comments. All the JavaDoc comments should be written in a using a JavaDoc comments. All the documentations will be written in JavaDoc comments. Now let me describe that. This is a class used to describe JavaDoc. For the entity, I am specifying the JavaDoc comments. This is a class used to specify the JavaDoc comments. Understood? Now let us see how the documentation can be created for this. Okay? Now let me go for you want to create a Java documentation, we go for a command JavaDoc. JavaDoc space, and for source code we use the folder structure src. Am I right? For the source code we use src. Okay. For dot class files we use classes. In the same way, for documentation purposes, all the documents will be, as a convention, all the documents should be created in a folder. All the documents should be created in a folder docs. This is the naming convention for a folder in which documents should be. All the documents should be created in the folder docs. Source code should be there in src, dot class file should be there in classes, documentation should be there in docs. Understood? Now to create a documentation, just go for the command JavaDoc space -d space docs. Understood? Space, what is the .java file? Slash JavaDoc demo. Understood? So in place of JavaC, now we are using JavaDoc to create documentation. -d means divide the created documents to docs folder. Okay, and create the Java documentation for this .java file. Okay, now let me try to compile. Okay, so now this is the process. Process is being executed while Java documentation. Let me see. So these are all the documents created for the Java documentation. Okay, now there will be index.html file which has all the list of elements or the list of entities that present. Let me click on this. So it lists all on left side, it lists all the entities. On left side it will list all the entities. So if I click on the entity, okay, is that specified here? Is that the Java documentation that I have given? This is a class used to describe JavaDoc. So this is a description for that class. This is how the Java documentation can be provided for a entity. Now by seeing this Java documentation, a new developer can easily come to know why this class is used and why this X class is used or Y class is used or Z class is used. So Java document is must and mandatory for any application. Okay, so likewise, and let's go for non-public class. Non-public class. What is stealing? No public or protected classes found to document. By default, only public classes will be Java documented. By default, only public classes will be Java documented. By default, only public classes will be Java documented. By default, only public classes will be Java documented. We'll see later on how we can implement the Java documentation for other classes also. Right now, just make it a note like by default only public entities, not classes, public entities will be Java documented. By default only public entities will be Java documented. Now this documentation can be written for a class, for an interface, for an enum, for annotation type, anything can be documented. Okay? Now inside a class, let me write attribute. Let me consider that. Let's consider like there is attribute ID. Okay. Now I have gone for ID, and there is some JavaDoc description in the JavaDoc comments. Now let me try to create a JavaDoc. Let me close this. Let me try to create the JavaDoc. Now I have created Java documentation even for attribute. Now let me see. Let me refresh this. Okay, let me click on this. Now, is the attribute description listed here? Let me search with this content. Some word here. Is it here? No. Why it doesn't exist here? Why it doesn't exist in JavaDocs? Why do you think it doesn't exist? See, here we have given a JavaDoc comments. But why doesn't it exist in the JavaDoc? In the generated documentation? Why doesn't it exist in the Java documentation if we have written some JavaDoc comments here? Just now I told that by default only public members will be Java documented. So, is it a public member? So, let me make it public. Okay. Now let's close this. Let's generate the documentation. Okay. Let me open this entity. Now is it documented? Yes. This is attribute used to represent the unique ID. Understood? By default only public and even protected members will be documented. Okay? By default public and protected members will be documented. So for entities protected cannot be there. So for entities only public entities. For members, for attributes or methods or constructors, protected and public members will be documented. So since it is protected, is it documented? It tells that it is a protected integer, attribute name is ID. Understood? By default only protected and public members will be documented. Okay? And if you want to document even the other members also, if you want to document even the members with other access levels, then what we should do is we should provide them as attributes. JavaDoc hyphen package means package access level members, protected access level members, as well as public access levels members will be documented. Hyphen package means from that access the higher levels will be documented. From that level all the higher levels will be documented. If you give package, protected and public members will be documented. Okay, now let me make it default. Default or package is one and the same. Okay, now default or package is one and the same. Now, was it documented previously? Was it previously documented? No. Now, let me try with the option hyphen package. While generating the JavaDocs, let me give hyphen package. Now, let me refresh this. We go here. Now, is it documented now? Yes or no? Yes. ID. This is attribute used to represent the unique ID. Understood? Now, private. Let me make it private. Okay, and then there is Java documentation and refresh the screen. Now is it documented? No. Why it is not documented? Just because attribute is private. If you give hyphen package, then package and higher levels of package will be documented. Now if I give a hyphen private, if I give hyphen private and if I give the member as package, now will it be documented or not? Yes or no? Now the access level is package, but here I am giving hyphen private. Now will it be documented or not? Yes or no? Definitely yes. Just because hyphen private means private and all the higher access levels to private. So this is documented, and if you click on this, it will lead to the specific component. Understood? Understood? And the ideal way is the code should not span more than 80 lines, 80 to 90 lines. Okay, the width of the code should be not more than 80 to 90 lines. That's the ideal way. Okay, if there is a documentation, if you write like this, it's not a correct thing. Okay, the user cannot scroll to the end. So the ideal way is to write some code or documentation or comments only up to 80 characters. After 80 characters or at maximum 90 characters, move to the next line. Okay, that's the ideal way. It should be fit in a screen. Whether we write comments or even code. Okay, that's the standard way. And we can write even for a method. Let me go for test method. Let me go for test method. Yes, I am creating a documentation that this is a test method. Okay. Now let me try to JavaDoc, create a JavaDoc, and let me try to refresh the page. Now for test method, is it documented? Yes, just because test method is public and we have given, while documenting we have given hyphen package. So test method is documented, and we can see the signature public void test and description of the method. Understood? Now let's consider like there is a method calculate average, or there is a method print value which takes a value. Okay, there is a method print value which takes a value. Okay, understood? Now, is it perfectly documented? Do you think it is perfectly documented? Do you think the documentation meets all the requirements for this method? No, definitely no. Just because this method now it is taking a argument. It has an argument, it will take a parameter. It will take some value. But what value we should give to that method? We say we have already said that what that method will do, but we didn't tell or we didn't describe what is the value that we need to send to that method. Did we describe that? No. If the method has arguments, a perfect Java document will contain the description even about the arguments. Okay? Now, how we can describe or how we can give some values to the, or how we can describe the documentation of the arguments? Let us see. Now, let me clear this, document this, and refresh this. Just if you see here, print value is there, tells that it will take a string. But what is the value that we need to provide to that string? We don't know. So that should be provided. String can be anything. We can send name, we can send month, we can send the date, and we can send anything. But what is the value? If it is expected to be a name, we should describe that. Yes, please input the name of the person here. Please input the name of the company here. That kind of documentation should be there, even for a method as well as for the arguments also. So, I'll describe the arguments. How we can describe the arguments means using param. Param, okay? Value. Just please don't write. Let me see. So, value specifies that the value to be printed. Just now you can write. See, @param space the name of the parameter space the description of the parameter. This is a syntax where we describe or where we give comments to a parameter, where we can describe a parameter. Okay, @param space the name of the parameter space the value that we need to send to the parameter. Okay, understood? Now, is this comment added? Is this comment added in the JavaDoc? Is this comment added in the JavaDoc or not? Yes or no? Yes. Okay. Let's see. In the middle it is showing some warning. What is the warning? In the middle it has thrown some warning. What is the warning? Param argument ABC is not the name of the parameter. Okay. So, after param, whatever we give the name, that is considered to be the name of the parameter. It should match with the name of the identifier of the parameter, identifier of the argument. It should match with the identifier of the argument, or simply the name of the variable. After @params, we give the name of the argument or the name of the variable. If we give some variable which doesn't exist, and this Java documentation is over, and we try to refresh, okay, we try to refresh. This is giving the value ABC, the value to be printed. But what it is doing is, while generating Java document, it is giving a warning that ABC is not a parameter name. But is it a perfect documentation? It's not a perfect documentation. The param is used to specify the documentation or the description of a specific argument. But if the argument doesn't exist, if the user sees this documentation, he will see the param ABC is used for this. But if ABC doesn't exist, how he can assume? how the developer can assume what is ABC? It's not the correct thing. So a perfect documentation contains the description of all the arguments with exact argument names. So we should give the exact argument name here. Then only it will be a perfect documentation. Now, the same scenario, is it giving a warning? Is this warning coming again? No, just because the name of the parameter is matching. Okay? And that makes some sense. If we refresh this, and it tells that there is a value and we are telling that y value is used. That makes some sense. But if we make it ABC, but the name of the parameter is value, doesn't make any sense. What is ABC? Understood? Okay? And let me write some method. Calculate interest, which returns a double value, which returns the interest. Let me return simply 0 temporarily, just to compile this. Okay? Now, let me take then by seeing this method, the user may or may not know what is the value that they need to send to P, what is the value that they need to send to T, what is the value that they need to send to R. So we should provide a documentation for this. This is a method. This method is used to calculate simple interest now. Is this documentation enough for this method? No, we should give what the specific parameter takes. Now, is it a perfectly Java documented method? Yes? Just see. Is it a perfectly Java documented method? We are telling that it will take one double P, which is principal amount, one double T, which is time period, one double T, which is the rate of interest. This will return some value. What is the value that is returned? We are telling, by the name of the method, we cannot tell that it will return the interest. Name of the method is not the criteria to describe the method. So, the return type, by using the return type, we should describe this is the return type and this is the value that is returned from this method. If the return type is other than void, then we should describe even the return value. We should give some description even about the return value. Okay. Now let me try to document this. Okay. Now let me refresh this. So calculate interest is there. P is used to change the principal amount. T time period or the rate of interest. But by seeing this, we can come to know what we can set as a first value, second value, and a third value. But what it returns, that should be documented through return. Return space, the ideal thing is to keep the data type. Return space, the data type space, the description. This is the ideal way. Now the same kind of documentation can be done even for a constructor. Just because constructor cannot have return values but it can have parameters. The same param will be used to Java document constructor parameters also. I will not explain that once again. You can apply the same thing for the parameters for a constructor. The constructor cannot have return. Okay? So, let me try to document this. It was documented. Let me try to refresh this. And if you see here, go for calculate interest. It returns double the calculated simple interest. It returns a double value, which is the calculated simple interest. Understood? And the same param will be used even for parameters of a constructor also. I will not explain it once again. Need not to explain it. And other than this, param, return. Now let me write return for a void method. Is it a valid thing? Is it a valid thing to write return documentation for a void method? No. So it will not give any compile time error, or it will not restrict the documentation, but it gives a warning that return should not be used for void methods. Okay? It will not restrict from documentation, but while providing the documentation, it will give you a warning. Understood? But it's not an ideal scenario. Okay? And like param, return, we can have different things like author, who has written this class. Or author can be written even for a method, for a constructor, for an attribute, for anything. Okay? But in general cases, for some secured class, in most of the cases we can write the names, but in some secured projects, the client provides you a ID. Okay? The client will provide you ARD, we should provide that ID. For secured banking or some secured insurance products, or if you want, you can ask your colleagues or managers, like what is the Java documentation standards that we follow in the project. Some projects, they'll follow they'll write the name. In some projects, they'll follow a standard that names should not be written, secured IDs should be written. Okay, for each and every developer, client will give a unique ID. That unique ID should be used, not the names. Okay. So that depends upon the standards of the client. In most 90% scenarios, author will contain the name of the author. Okay. Since contains like the date. Okay? When exactly it is being modified. and version. We can give this order, since and version for any member, even for entity, attribute, method. One method might be written by one developer, another method may be written by another developer. So specific to that method we can write order. Okay? In some cases the whole class might be written by the same author. So what I will do is, just at the class level they will give order. But sometimes one method might be written, the whole class might be written by one author. One method, let's consider like calculate interest is written by another developer. So what we will do is, for this specific method, the order is like this. Understood? Like this we need to write. That means the whole class is written by Rajesh, but the specific method will be is being written by some person. Okay? That's how we need to document. Now let us see by documentation. There is no warning. And we try to refresh. Click here. Now, what happens? Only since is displayed. Is the order and version displayed? Will for calculate interest also? Is the order and version displayed? Yes or no? No. Only since is displayed. By default, only since will be considered while generating the Java documents. But if you want to create even the order and version also, then we should give the specific values. So, -order will provide Java documentation about the order also. So, the document is, it's telling that @order should not be used in method documentation, but in general we can do that. We can ignore this one, okay? So, order is here. Understood? Generated. See here, order is used. Now, if you want to go for even version, you should go for -version. So now both version as well as order will be there. So refresh. Both version as well as order is. By default, only since will be available. If you want to go for order and version, we should give that values. -version, -order. Understood? Understood? But we can write this to specify, but this is not required that much. Okay? Order for a method is not required that much, but order for a class is something like an ideal and mandatory thing. Understood how the Java documentation will be, how we need to provide a Java documentation, and the Java documentation should be in detail. Like if we are writing a class, then we should write why the class is used, in which scenario the class should be used, how the class should be used, what the object of the class will do. All the description should be written as much as possible. Okay? Don't write 100 lines of description. Write a description that is required to describe a class, that will give a clear picture about the class. For a method, write a description which gives a clear picture about the method. What the method will do, what is the logic in the method, what are the parameters that we send in the method. What happens if we send null values? What happens if we send empty values? Like that, like the description. Okay? And this is the way how we can implement Java documentation. Okay? And this will complete Java documentation. Ideally, for any member that we develop, either a class or interface or enum or annotation type or a method or a constructor or an attribute or anything that we develop, there should be documentation. Okay? For method, we can have param written. For a class or for any entity, we can have author, since, version. By default, by default only since will be available. If you want to make use of author or version, we should give that as an argument. Hyphen version, hyphen author, like that. By default only protected and public members will be documented. If you want to go for documentation for package and private, then we should provide the corresponding values. Hyphen private. Hyphen private means private, protected, default as well as public. Hyphen package means package as well as protected as well as public. Understood? Like that it will be. Okay? And this will complete the Java documentation. In the next class tomorrow evening, okay, we'll start with the class map settings and executable jar files. How we can create executable jar files and how we can make use of executable jar files. That's not a big deal. We can complete it in 1 hour, and in the next hour we'll start with file handling. Okay.